Hello, sentient beings of this unfortunate planet Earth. Welcome to Nihilist Wrestling. I am your host, Ash Manson. A lot has happened since we last spoke. We've had WrestleMania Saturday, Sunday, we've had Monday Night Raw. Of course, this isn't just a WWE podcast, it's just, lots of things are happening in WWE right now, so we're going to talk about that predominantly. You know what, I've had a great weekend so far. I went to an NXT house show on Friday in Dade City, Florida. Got to bring my son and my wife. It was a great time. And I went to an NWA Power taping in Tampa yesterday, which is Saturday. Went to support my friend Marty Bell and her tag team partner Allison Kay in the Hex. Can't wait to talk some wrestling with you guys here today. Repping my Timberwolves hat because go Wolves. I may be a resident of Greater Tampa Bay now, but I'm Minnesota born and raised, and we suffered for a long time. Happy to see my team making some noise in the playoffs. Get well soon, Ant and Dante DiVincenzo, and of course repping the Wyatt 6 shirt because fuck TKO. And that's going to be the first topic that we get in today. So yeah, I wanted to wait to record this show until after SmackDown because, the Raw after Mania and the SmackDown after just kind of tend to set the tone for the next however long until SummerSlam. And Friday was super relevant, but not because of anything that happened on SmackDown necessarily, but because a long list of releases came out, and some of them were real head scratchers. And not just head scratchers, some of them just seem downright disrespectful. And I'm especially talking about the release of the Wyatt 6. Like, they made such a big deal about, paying tribute to the man, Wyndham Rotunda, to the legacy of Bray Wyatt. LOL, JK. We need to make room for some new people, whatever. But I got the list pulled up in front of me. I'm going to go line by line, and again, some of these releases are a lot more surprising than others. So the first on this list is Kairi Sane, and wow. They have made such a production week in and week out about Asuka, like bullying Kairi, and Io was basically saying, you don't need to take all this. And I remember AJ Lee one time was checking on Kairi, say, hey girl, you alright? It seemed like it was kind of building towards Kairi saying babyface turn. She was finally going to turn on Asuka. Asuka has been an absolute menace since she started speaking English. I mean, she is such a great heel, But, why? There's a big, we want Kairi movement happening online right now. It's well-deserved. It's, kind of like the Killer Cross release last year. It's what the hell are you doing? I understand, you're calling up a bunch of people, you need to make room, but again, some of these cuts just don't make any sense. Next on the list, Aleister Black. What? There was a rumor, and you can't necessarily trust what you see in the dirt sheets, but this actually makes sense according to what we were seeing, that the person who was in the ear of Randy Orton was supposed to be Aleister Black. He was going to use his evil manipulative powers, very reminiscent of what Killer Cross was doing last year, speak of the devil. But he was going to manipulate Randy Orton into basically becoming the Viper again, becoming the Legend Killer, 09 Orton, as they say. Instead, TKO went and shoehorned Pat McAfee into that role, and now Aleister Black is released. Here's just, I said this isn't just a WWE podcast. Aleister / Malachi Black is, one of my favorites going right now, easily top 5. just such an interesting character. I think this might be a hot take, but I stand by it. In my opinion, Aleister Black is every bit as good as Bray Wyatt was, and this is coming from someone who's repping a Wyatt 6 shirt right now. I have such tremendous respect for both of them. Just the attention to detail, the passion, like the amount of work that goes into their characters. That's why Aleister and Bray remind me of each other so much. And I keep on saying it. What are we doing here? I just really hope that the bridge isn't burned in AEW. But to be honest with you, like, both companies fumbled Mr. Black, Aleister Malachi. Like, when he first debuted in AEW, he was shot out of a cannon. Like, his first big match was he squashed Cody Rhodes, like, hit the Black Mass right away. You're thinking that this guy was going to the moon, but then he just kind of, faded into the black, no pun intended, job to some of the stars, and the House of Black had a really good run, like, in the trios division, but yeah, this guy has massive superstar energy, and I just hope that, again, that he turns back up in AEW. This guy has so much to contribute, and I would just hate to see that untapped. Of course, his wife Zelina Vega, who has had an awesome past couple of years. Again, it doesn't make any sense. Let's get to the Wyatt Six. Bo Dallas / Uncle Howdy, Nikki Cross, Joe Gacy, Dexter Lumis, Eric Rowan. Like, they were like one of the focal points of the tag team division. And they just released this heartfelt video about how much the lantern meant to them, and I think especially Eric Rowan's testimony, he just paraphrasing, but he said something to the effect of, like, this lantern reminds me of when I had my family, talking about Wyndham and Brody and all that, and it's like, it just reminds me that in some way they're still with us. And so imagine what I'm going to do to the person who tried to take this away. Like, there was so much tread still left on those tires. It's a business, but again, I think this take was from I watched a clip of Denise Salcedo's show, and she had Chris Santi, I think his name is, on, and he said, I'm completely lifting his talking point, like, you get this feeling like these people are just like a decimal point on someone's spreadsheet somewhere in the TKO office. And this is coming off of WrestleMania, where, like, there's just ads everywhere, and there was so much time in between matches, and it was like, I made a joke, and I'm paraphrasing myself here, like, I can't wait to see the Night 2 of the TKO WWE Weekly American Vodka Cinnamon Toast Crunch, the General Insurance Minute Maid Fanatics WrestleMania, or something like that. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. I'm just seeing this, I don't know, everything is being suffocated by capitalism, and WWE is not exempt from it. I hate it. What do you do? Because the machine keeps rolling on. Let's go down the list. Santos Escobar, he's someone that I always thought had the total package. He looked great. He was fluent in English. He was a great worker in the ring. And they just never really ran with him for reasons I can't describe. And of course, with the acquisition of AAA, which he used to work there, again, these are all very surprising releases so far. When I'm looking down the list, I see Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley of the Motor City Machine Guns. I have to say I'm not as upset by this release, and that's not a knock on either of them. I'm a huge fan of your favorite tag team's favorite tag team, but I feel like they're just better suited elsewhere, either in TNA, where they have such a rich history, or in AEW, where they put so much more emphasis on the in-ring product. I don't think neither Shelley nor Sabin are excellent sports entertainment storytellers, just phenomenal professional wrestlers. They came into WWE shot out of a cannon, just like I was saying with Malachi Black and AEW. They won the tag team titles right away, and then just never really... I mean, they were always around title contention, but maybe it just wasn't that good of a fit. So again, not super upset by that. Kind of along those lines, Apollo Crews, this is not a surprising one. He's got so much talent. I was a big fan of him on the indies, but just never really seemed to find his way within the WWE machine. Andre Chase was brought in to be more of a mentor than an in-ring competitor, but had some very entertaining moments in NXT with Chase U. I'm not surprised by this, just a little upset. Big fan of him. I hope he lands on his feet. I saw him leave a comment on Duke Hudson's Instagram saying, "Hey, I'm in between jobs. Let's talk." I would love to see them work together again. Zoe Stark, not surprising, also a fan of hers. She came in with a pretty big push, was paired with Trish Stratus, just hasn't really found her way since then. Let's see, Alba Fire, when they released her partner Isla Dawn, was it last year? That was surprising to me. So I feel like Alba Fire was put with Chelsea Green and all that, and I very much the Secret Harvest was very entertaining. It wasn't necessarily because of anything Alba Fire contributed to it. Not a knock on her. It's just that act is about Chelsea. Very talented. I hope she finds her way as well. Tyra May Steele. This one's a little bit confusing because it's like, then what is this LFG show about where you just release the winners? And on top of that, when season 1 was rolling, I think I watched most, if not all, of season 1 and just kind of fell out of watching it after that. So like Cutler James, a member of Dark State, was competing for a shot on the NXT roster. Meanwhile, he's on NXT in Dark State. So again, you're kind of undermining the integrity of that show. I don't know anything about the specifics as to why Tyra was released, but it doesn't necessarily surprise me. It's just kind of like again, what are we doing? Serena Linton, I don't think she appeared on television, so she was also on LFG. Tyson DuPont and Tyreek Igwe, they were paired with Desmond Xavier, known as Wes Lee at the time. That group never really connected, and then they never really used Tyson or Tyreek after that. That one isn't so surprising. Chris Island, he was also in LFG, never really stood out to me. Malik Blade, I enjoyed his tag team with Idris Inafe, but that one isn't super surprising. Trill London, I don't even necessarily really know who that is. I know they gave that name to, I think it was an NIL signee, could have been an indie guy. I don't know. I just know that name was being memed on for a while because it's so ridiculous. They do tend to name these people in NXT something really ridiculous. And then Luca Crucifino, I thought that they broke up the D'Angelo family a little prematurely. I loved his gimmick as a consigliere, I hope I said that right, of the D'Angelo family. He even made his own website about his law services and all that, and it just kind of highlighted his wrestling storylines and all that. I think that was dedication to the craft. I was a fan of his. I thought his new party boy gimmick and Evolve was a little silly, but that one's not surprising. All right, let me take a sip of the Liquid Death. Please sponsor me. Just kidding, not really. All right. So yeah, that was the full list of WWE releases. You always hate this time of year. Hate when people lose their livelihood. I would like to see a few of them in AEW, namely Malachi Black. I would the Motor City Machine Guns, I think, would fit pretty well there. I don't think that Bo Dallas, Taylor Rotunda, is necessarily the style of wrestler that they typically, hire in AEW, but God, he was doing so good as Uncle Howdy. Then I think hopefully these guys like Dexter Lumis he's one of the most interesting characters through the NXT 2.0 era. I loved Index, Joe Gacy, The Schism, that was amazing. Nikki Cross, She was Alexa Bliss's best friend, almost a superhero. Eric Rowan, the OG Wyatt family member. You hate to see it, but what else can you say? I just hope that they find a way to feed their families, and I guess we're just going to move on to the next main topic I wanted to cover, and this is the image you see on the thumbnail. Just the one storyline that kind of is hanging around WrestleMania, except for there's one with Brock Lesnar retiring. He might not be retiring. I'm not going to talk about that so much in this episode. I think that deserves a little bit more time. So we're going to talk about the Bloodline 3.0, as I'm calling it. And the way I separate this is the original Bloodline, pandemic era, Roman and the Usos with Solo and Sammy joining later. And then the second iteration, I say, when Solo had his bootleg Great Value Timo Bloodline, and then the OG Bloodline when they had that little war. So I consider this like 3.0. Solo's still doing some version of the bootleg Bloodline, but I'm glad he's not really calling it the Bloodline anymore, because he's not actually related to any of those people. Most of them are Tongans, and Jeff Cobb, JC Mateo, that's a dumb name. He's Hawaiian, so glad they renamed that group. But Bloodline 3.0 is very interesting to me, and here's what I think / hope is going to happen, and I think history is somewhat repeating itself in more ways than one. And the first way I want to talk about is with Jacob Fatu, and the role that I see Jacob Fatu playing right now is similar to Jey Uso in the pandemic era. And let me explain myself. Jacob's a little bit, further, not as far into his WWE career, but more of an established singles wrestler, whereas Jey was more of a tag team guy at the time when the first Bloodline was rolling. But how Roman basically had to break Jey down and submit him to his authority. And at first Jey was being super headstrong and egotistical about it, and then Roman defeated him, and eventually Jimmy was egging him along, but eventually Jey threw up the one and acknowledged Roman, and it worked out so well for him in the long run. And I think / hope that is what's going to happen to Jacob. Now, Jacob has a lot of momentum as a singles wrestler, although I think there is a little bit of a ceiling as to what he can do right now, because I think it's really cool how they're going into his background and all that, but he is still relatively new on the scene, and I think with him giving him some time in the main event scene under Roman's wing and with the Usos, I think is going to allow us to invest. And if that takes place over a period of time, Roman says he's going to be around all summer, when he does finally split off from his family, I think he is going to be all the better for it, the same way Jey was. So I'm expecting Roman to beat Jacob Fatu at Backlash in Tampa, which I will be attending. We'll probably talk about that in the future. And I do think that Jacob will reluctantly submit to Roman, throw up the one, and acknowledge him as his tribal chief. Now, Roman told the Usos, I don't want you to serve me, I want you to stand by me. I think that's going to be more the narrative than the substance of this arrangement. I think that Roman is going to be drunk off of power. I think he's going to basically revert back to his old tribal chief ways. And Jey has kind of been in a descent into madness for a while now. You see him almost flip out, almost pretty much completely flip out on a couple occasions. But the next week he always kind of seems to revert to your, smiling, yeeting, fan favorite main event Jey Uso and all that. But on SmackDown, you heard Jimmy kind of antagonize the crowd a little bit, and Jimmy's the one who's been kind of playing it cool, like, hey, my brother's on a rampage, but I don't agree with all that. He's my blood, but watch out. He told CM Punk that he's always trying to rein Jay in. So the reason I mentioned all that is it seems like this new iteration of the Bloodline is going to be turning heel, and I think that is where they do their best work. I think there's going to be shades of gray. I don't really think, like, the same way there was with the CM Punk Roman Reigns feud, like, who was the babyface, who was the heel? I think it was a lot more complicated than that. I think both of them were in the wrong in different points in the feud. But like, I look forward to seeing how that's going to play out. And there's another like moment, like another thing happening where I think history is repeating itself, and that's with Sami Zayn, and it's in a little bit different of a way. But you remember like how he initially came into the Bloodline. His whole pitch is hey Roman, I'm Sami Zayn here, locker room leader, and you and I, we kind of run things around here, and if you need anything from me, I'm available. Like, Sami was kind of having delusions of grandeur, like saying that he was a locker room leader when at the time he was basically positioned as a mid-carder / somewhat comedy act. He lost to Johnny Knoxville at WrestleMania. Like, that's the kind of position Sami Zayn was in. But like, in his delusion, he eventually won the crowd over just because it was like so adorable to see him like, oh my god, I can have Spot in Bloodline, and then like, oh, you gotta forgive it, Jay, he's not being very oozy. Sammy was he was delusional at the time, and right now with his feud with Trick Williams, it's another one of those instances where you don't really know like who the heel and who the babyface is. If you go strictly by crowd reaction, it would seem that Trick is the babyface and Sammy is the heel, but also like Trick is calling Sammy the gingerbread man. He's like, that is like incredibly disrespectful in a way that it's almost kind of like controversial. You don't like, if he just straight up called him a ginger, I think that would rub some people the wrong way, but that's definitely not a babyface like thing to do. And Trick is of course very arrogant. I'm digging Lil Yachty as his manager. I'd heard his name. I don't listen to rap. I don't really know much about Lil Yachty, but I think he's doing a pretty good job as Trick's hype man. But anyway, what has Sammy been saying every week that he comes out? He's like, you know what? I don't know what I did wrong, and I'm kind of with him there. He never really did anything except for continue to be a white bread babyface, as I say all the time, in an era that isn't really all about this, kind of struggling the same way that Cody Rhodes does in some ways to like maintain the crowd being the super vanilla good guy. But he's like, you know what, I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep doing what I do for the ride or die Sami Zayn fans. And every time he says that, he gets booed. And he's increasingly acting a little bit more, belligerent, a little bit more edgy, rough around the edges in his feud with Trick Williams. He came out dancing as a gingerbread man, taking out a very popular... Again, who's the babyface, who's the heel, who knows. But Sammy keeps saying, I'm doing it for the ride or die. Well, where are they? I'm a ride or die Sami Zayn fan, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of them. He seems to be exaggerating his popularity in the same way that he was exaggerating his position, his influence in the WWE locker room. And I think that's just going to be, like, he put it on his tights. He's just going to keep on like, being out of his mind and being oblivious until he just completely the heel. And he's doing more and more, like, bad things that he typically wouldn't. And he's going to target popular wrestlers and continue to convince himself that he's doing it for the ride or dies. I think his positioning as the delusional heel will be a good, I don't know, a good little excuse to put him back with the Bloodline. Like, listen, maybe y'all don't, all you fans don't have my back in the same way that you used to, but you know who has always been there with me, along with the Ride or Dies? The Bloodline, the OG Bloodline, Roman, the Usos, and then I think, of course, as I was saying earlier, I think Jacob is going to be involved. I am here for this. Bloodline 3.0, these guys are all so entertaining. Like, these guys, they headline TV shows constantly just with talking segments because we're all so invested, because these guys have been doing it for so long at such a high level that we have so much invested in their characters and their story arcs. And that's why I was saying I think this is going to be really good for Jacob. Not that people don't love him already. I just think it's going to help people invest in him stronger. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out over time. There's one more topic that I want to touch on before I wrap this up. And I mentioned this in the last video, but I've seen a few things since then that might make me think that this whole Judgment Day Civil War idea that I've had, and I haven't heard this be said anywhere else on the internet. I'm not saying that, nobody else is saying this, but I came to this conclusion independently, to this theory independently, and I haven't heard anyone else say it. So this is what I said. If you didn't see my last video, is I think that the most interesting thing that they could do with Finn Balor right now, that he's on his own again, is to actually reunite him with Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley, and they'll probably have R-Truth around because R-Truth is so convinced that he is a member of the Judgment Day. And I think, so R-Truth is saying every week, yeah, the new Judgment Day, you see? He was talking to Rhea about the Judgment Day, and both, he made a tweet about this supposed new Judgment Day with him and Damian Priest, and both Rhea and Damian retweeted him, what the hell is going on here? And then and another layer on top of that, when Finn Balor got turned on by Dominic and the remaining members of the Judgment Day, both Damian and Rhea had something to say. Remember, Damian said, "Sucks, doesn't it?" Which Finn was getting a taste of his own medicine. So all these people, Damian, Rhea, and Finn were kicked out of a group that, in the grand scheme of things, they are probably more prominent members of than anyone currently involved, with the only exception you can maybe make a case for Dominic Mysterio, right? The current Judgment Day is, and I am a huge fan. You see me talk about the Judgment Day every week. I have been with them, since people were complaining about Edge turning heel when everyone loves him, to people just saying that they're irrelevant jobbers when it was first just Damian, Finn, and Rhea, to everyone complaining about them being on TV all the time when it was the four-person version with, Dom, Rhea, Finn, and Damian, to everyone saying that they should just break up from the time that JD joined, to Rhea and Damian being kicked out, and everyone's just saying, the Judgment Day just needs to end. I disagree. I love the Judgment Day. I hope they're still around for years. I did lay out the terms in which, if you are going to have them end, I think it should be with what I'm about to say. Before I get there, another aspect that made me think that I'm not just crazy is that interaction between Rhea and Liv Morgan. Liv is just sitting there with her championship, and I don't even remember what they said. It was just kind of hey, see you down the road. That's kind of what Liv said, and Rhea said something to the effect of, I can't wait to get a piece of you again. And if those two are going to feud, there's no real reason. There's not this SmackDown versus Raw show coming up where you have the champions versus the champions that I'm aware of anyway. There's no real reason to have an inter-show rivalry like that. I don't think they're consolidating the championship. So why else would you have Rhea feud with Liv? What is their beef? It's Dominic and it's the Judgment Day. So to get to, I'm just going to reiterate my proposal from last week. I think that Finn, Rhea, and Damian should all get together and say, listen, we have more of a claim to the name, the Judgment Day, than the current group does. And I think that they should call them out, and they're going to go back and forth for a while, culminating in a 6-person match between, and this is just how I would book it, but I think it this would be the best way to go about it. Have a match between Dom, JD, and Liv against Damian, Finn, and Rhea for the control of the name, the Judgment Day. What I would like to see happen, and I said this in the last video, is to see Rhea, Damian, and Finn restart their version of the Judgment Day, because I feel like WWE really dropped the ball by not letting the group have a babyface run, despite pretty much everyone involved being super popular. But if you're going to put the group to rest, I think that those three should win the match, come out to the theme song one last time, and say, listen, we accomplished the mission the Judgment Day was set out to accomplish. Edge's vision, and they're not going to say Edge, but his vision was to elevate underutilized wrestlers, and now those three are big stars in their own right. They don't need the Judgment Days, so it's time to lay it to rest. Again, I would prefer that the group just keep on going, but yeah, I just seen things to think that this whole thing with the Judgment Day Civil War actually has legs. And because I'm not seeing this sentiment really expressed online, I'm just putting it out there. I would love to see it. I love to see anytime the Judgment Day is on television. Just I have a lot invested in that group, as you know, if you watch my videos. So yeah, that's there's so much more we can talk about. I mean, WrestleMania just happened. So, but I think we've gone long enough for this one. But yeah, I'll definitely be coming at you again in the near future. But until next time, my friends, revel in what you are.